Good evening, resilient souls, and welcome to Pain2Purpose, the podcast, where we break the silence and amplify voices on the journey from struggle to strength. I'm your host, Pang Nhia PT Burke, and I'm excited to have you with me for another episode. Get ready for real talk, genuine moments, and the journey of turning pain into purpose. Grab your favorite spot, settle in, and let's embark on this transformative ride together. Good evening, resilient souls, and welcome to another episode on the Pain2Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Pang Nhia PT Burke, and I'm so glad that you're able to join us this evening. Are y'all ready for another life lesson? On this week's episode, we will be talking about relationships after trauma, and not just romantic relationships, but relationships in general. As a person who has gone through the healing process, who has gone through a plethora of trauma, it has just been probably one of the hardest things for me as I started my healing journey, because there's not a clear guide for navigating relationships after we go through trauma. Whether you're the one at fault or you're the one who was hurt in the process, we tend to hold on to all of that baggage when we go into our next relationships, whether that is a friendship, acquaintances, a romantic relationship. If we don't take time for ourselves to heal and to learn to love all of us, and in the process unload all of that past trauma before stepping into a new relationship, you're always going to be in the same predicament over and over again, because you haven't learned from your last relationship why it failed. And for me, I don't look at my past relationships as failed relationships. If anything, it taught me what I wanted in my next relationship. It wasn't time wasted, because if I didn't go through those things in those past relationships, I wouldn't be where I am today with my marriage. I had to learn things along the way with my walk with God to be able to understand myself a little better. And we need to take time to reflect on our personal faults and consider how the previous relationship could have been handled better from our side, because maybe there were things that we were doing that was not of satisfaction to that other person. But where most people feel like they have had failed relationships is because they don't communicate with one another. And I will say, for myself at least, going through trauma and dealing with all of the relationships that I had dealt with, I had a lot of trust issues. I didn't want to put trust in no one. I didn't tell people a lot of things about myself. I was a very shy person, very quiet, timid. I just lived in this world of sulking into all of the things that had happened to me instead of dealing with it. And I knew at that time that I needed therapy, but I wasn't ready for that. And it was kind of crazy that I was going to be talking about this topic, and it came up when I took a road trip with my husband recently to San Diego, is that because he travels for work a lot and he's only home, for a couple weeks at a time, if this was 6 years ago, I don't think that our marriage would have lasted, because we both had a lot of insecurities. I would think he's cheating. He would think I'm cheating. We just had a very toxic, non-trusting relationship at that time. And to be honest, we both agreed we shouldn't have been in relationships when we got into them. But we stepped into this marriage because God had other plans for us. And it wasn't something that I was willing to back away from, and he felt the same way. And so we had to learn how to navigate around everything that was going on in our marriage. And as we started going to therapy, the few times that we did, and I started going to therapy by myself on a regular basis, I realized that there were a lot of things that I was pouring into this relationship from my past relationship, which was not fair to my husband. It wasn't okay that I was comparing him to my past relationships. It wasn't okay that I had continued to compare him to what these other men did for me that he wasn't doing for me because those men knew me more. It was just a lot of things, and I felt that he did the same thing. And so as we navigated through this journey together and decided that we both needed help, it made us realize that our marriage is not as bad as what we thought it was, because we have learned to trust each other. And now, thinking back to that young person that I was and not knowing who I was at that time, I shouldn't have been in a relationship. I shouldn't have met someone so quick after another relationship. But we all have needs. We all want to fulfill that. And even with friendships, I was so eager to find another friend who I can relate to and be besties and go hang out, get our nails done. But all of the past relationships that I had coming into this marriage with my husband was not genuine. And I had to accept that where it was, and I had to let it go. And as I started going to therapy on a regular basis, I realized that those were relationships that I should have let go a long time ago. And the relationships that I least expected came into light through my walk with God, because I wanted to surround myself with just genuine people. And I couldn't find that, because internally, even though we're not wanting to find that because of what we have gone through, we're going to continue to draw to those people. And one of the most important things that I've learned along this journey is to find a partner. If we're talking about romantic relationships, you need to find someone who is empathetic to your situation. You need to be able to tell this person openly, with honesty, of what you are going through, so that they're able to better handle the situation. And it's going to be their decision if they're going to want to move forward with you, because we want to just give all of the good things about us when we're starting to date again. We don't want to talk about all of the things that we did bad in a relationship. We want to point out what the other person did bad in a relationship at the end of the day. And that's not the case, because we did wrongs in our relationship too. Even if that relationship or that individual caused you trauma, there were things that you could have handled in a better light, but you did not do that. And so you have to hold yourself accountable for the things that you have done in your past relationships. But as a person who has gone through trauma, trusting men was probably one of the hardest things for me, because the father figure, my mom's husband, he did things to me. My mom's cousin did things to me. The person that I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with left me a 10-page letter telling me that it was my fault that he took his own life. So those things started trickling on me, where it just became this big buildup. And we all know, uncomfortable situations, we tend to sweep that under the rug and we don't talk about it, because it's not a give me a good feeling type of situation. It's something that we don't want to deal with. And as I started going to therapy, I had to dig all of those things back up, and I had to give it to God. Because if I didn't give it to God, it was going to continue to filter into my marriage now, and we wouldn't have came this far. But my husband had to learn also that he needed to be more sensitive to certain situations. He needed to learn how to understand who I was, and he needed to be empathetic, because my husband will tell you he's not an empathetic person whatsoever. But after being married to someone who has gone through trauma, it's taught him how to be empathetic to others. And it takes one person to be able to open your eyes up to what you've done wrong towards others. And that goes both ways. My husband has shown me things throughout our marriage that I didn't realize about myself that I had to work on. And so my advice out of saying all of this is that before you go into your next relationship, work on you. Work on who you want to be. Work on the type of person that you want to be friends with or want to spend the rest of your life with or acquaint yourself with, and surround yourself with those individuals. Because if you continue to live in your trauma and not deal with it, you're going to continue to attract the same kind of people over and over again. And for those who have wronged individuals, you need therapy. You need to go and understand why those things are affecting your relationship. Why are you continuing to do those things? So that you can be better for your next relationship and know that you're not going to bring that into your relationship. We all have trauma in our own ways. Some people's trauma is worse than other people, but we've all gone through trauma. Especially in relationships, whether that's family, romantic relationships, your friendships, your acquaintances, we've all been hurt in one way or another. And we have to learn to forgive those individuals, because it could be that there was lack of knowledge for them to understand what you were going through. And forgiving those people will help you move forward with your next relationship, because now you're not holding on to that hurt. You're not thinking that that next person is going to hurt you. And I have to say, I'm in a very good place in my life right now where I know who I can depend on, and I continue to pour into my relationships as I pour into my friendships, and even relationships with my family. I continue to pour into that, because at the end of the day, we are creatures that like to feel loved. We want to feel needed by others. And in order for us to have successful relationships, we need to be honest with who we are and how we can treat others better. And our trauma doesn't have to define who we are in relationships with. We have to learn and grow from that on a daily basis, because anyone can be in a relationship with anyone. But if you both have problems, you're going to continue to have problems. So I pray that this message has resonated with someone today, and I hope that you join us next week with a very special guest, and I'm excited for that guest to be on our platform.
And that concludes today's episode of Pain2Purpose, where we believe in breaking silence and amplifying voices. Remember, your story matters. If any part of our conversation resonated with you, or if you have your own stories to share, please reach out to us. Our contact information is in the show notes. Until we meet again on this path of purpose, keep embracing the journey. This is your host, Pang Nhia PT Burke, signing off. See you in the next chapter of Pain2Purpose.